All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down Transport Canada's Airworthiness Directive, CF-2025-51. This is an absolutely critical update for anyone operating the Bombardier Challenger 600 series, and it tackles a really serious issue: uncommanded flap movement. So here's how we're going to unpack this. We'll start with a big picture overview of the directive. Then we'll dig into the specific incident that kicked this whole thing off. After that, we'll get into which aircraft are affected, what you actually have to do to comply, the impact on your operations, and finally, we'll wrap up with the hard deadlines you need to know. Okay, first things first. This Airworthiness Directive, or AD, came from Transport Canada on October 8th, 2025. The key date for you to remember is its effective date, October 22nd, 2025. The whole point of this AD is to mandate some corrective actions for a pretty significant flight control issue they found in the Challenger fleet. And let's be perfectly clear about the stakes here. This is a direct quote from the directive itself. If this condition isn't corrected, it could lead to the loss of control of the aircraft. So yeah, this isn't some minor recommendation. It's a mandatory action that is absolutely essential for flight safety. So to really understand the why behind this directive, you've got to look at the specific event that happened in the air that triggered this whole response. What happened was, a Challenger 604 was in flight, and its flaps just started moving on their own, going from 0 degrees all the way down to 45. Now, the crew got a flaps fail caution, which is good, but the system has a safety feature that's supposed to stop that movement at around 3 degrees. And in this case, it didn't. So how did we get here? Well, it was a chain reaction. It all started with a simple retract relay failing. But the tricky part was, this created a hidden problem. The flaps started retracting at half speed, which is subtle enough that it went completely unnoticed for several flights. Then, boom, the uncommanded movement happened, and because that relay had already failed, the safety system was powerless to stop it. All right, so now for the million-dollar question. Which aircraft are we actually talking about here? This directive covers a pretty wide range of the Challenger family. You've got the CL-600-1A11, which you know as the Challenger 600. Then there's the CL-600-2A12, the Challenger 601. And finally, the CL-600-2B16 model, which is a big bucket that includes the 601 3A and 3R, plus the 604, the 605, and the 650. And let's just hammer this point home. This isn't for a specific batch of aircraft. The AD applies to all serial numbers of the models we just went over. Every single one, no exceptions. Okay, let's get down to the nuts and bolts. What do maintenance and camo teams actually need to do to comply? It really boils down to two main things. First, your maintenance crews have to perform a specific functional check called the flap half-speed test. Second, and this is the really important long-term solution, you need to introduce new life limits for the flap extension and retraction relays by updating your maintenance program. Now, this table is basically your roadmap for compliance. All the specific instructions you need are in what are called temporary revisions, or TRs, to the Time Limits and Maintenance Checks Manual, the TLMC. All you have to do is find your aircraft model on this chart, and it points you to the exact document you need. Simple as that. Oh, and another super important thing to note. This new AD replaces an older one, CF-2025-51. That first one was really just a temporary fix that required you to do repetitive checks. This new AD is the permanent solution because it puts those hard life limits on the relays themselves. So we've talked about the technical side, but what does this all mean for the people managing the money and the schedule? Let's talk operational impact. You're going to feel this in three main areas. First, you've got to plan for aircraft downtime to get the tests and any replacements done. Second, you have to account for the maintenance man-hours it's going to take. And third, there's the whole logistical puzzle of scheduling everything and making sure you have the parts you need. All right, let's bring it home with the single most critical piece of information for every single operator: the deadline. The timeline is very clear. You have exactly 60 days from the effective date to get all of this done. And that effective date, the day the 60-day clock officially starts ticking, is October 22nd, 2025. That gives every affected operator a clean 2-month window to get into full compliance. So, with the actions and the timeline all laid out, the question for every operator of an affected Challenger is simple. What are you going to do now? Here's your final checklist. First, get your camo, planning, and maintenance teams talking to each other immediately. Make sure you have a solid plan to hit that deadline.
For all the nitty-gritty details, you absolutely have to refer to the official ADC F2025-51 document and the right TLMCs for your jet. And hey, if you have questions or need an alternative way to comply, reach out to Transport Canada. Now you have the essentials, it's time to get your teams moving.